Today I'm going to show you guys how I made this dragon fruit inspired mermaid tail.
Look ahead, the sea is calm, and I know we've been through a lot, but just wait. Wait for better days to come and carry us like wind in our sails. Hold on tight, I can smell the shore, it's right in front of us if we just hold on tight. This vision that I saw is getting closer every dawn. We are dreamers of the shore. Seven years now on this boat, and we all know where we belong. Just wait.
If you're interested in learning how to make your very own printed fabric mermaid tail, I have ebook resources available over in my Patreon shop. There's going to be a link in the description box down below, or you can just go directly to patreonpod.com after you watch this video, of course. In those ebooks, I cover everything that I'm going to show you guys in this video. Short of where to get the tails printed, please stop asking me. I do tell you how to find a printer, and we'll talk more about that later. So if you're new here, hi, my name is Courtney, and I'm an artist from Vancouver, Canada, that specializes in the conceptual design and realization of functional fabric mermaid tails. And today I'm going to give you a close-up look at my latest mermaid tail creation, the dragon fruit tail. So a while back, I did another tail making video where I was talking about how intense it was, that there were like over 170 layers to that one particular design. I can't remember offhand which tail it was now. This tail is made up over 700 layers, and I'm not kidding, 700 layers. It's utterly shocking. So really, the reason that it's so high is that when there's plates instead of scales, and it's not like a repeating scale sheet, each plate is individually sized and therefore individually rendered to fit the whole design. So each plate, those details are duplicated for another plate. There are different ways to do it. This is the way that I find works best for my workflow, but it does mean that your file size gets quite big and the number of layers just like skyrockets. And then of course there's like all the little individual plates on each of the fins. So in that 700 layers, I'm also including the duplicated layers for all the different fins. And the tail file itself is about 12 gigs, which isn't the largest tail that I've ever made, but it's still quite a large file. So as far as the design, the client was really inspired by dragon fruits and really wanted a mermaid tail that was dragon, like had the dragon aesthetic that I've done before, that sort of dragon vibe, but with the look of a dragon fruit, which obviously those two things just mesh. Dragon fruit, dragon, like these things just go together. And I spent a lot of time referencing actual dragon fruits, actual dragon fruits. What's the plural? Somebody help me. And I really wanted to break down the structure of each of the sort of leaves that it has, as well as those fine details like the seeds and the texture of the actual inside part of the fruit. I spent a huge amount of time specifically on the plates and the rendering of the plates, because something that's really interesting about working in sort of a flat 2D medium versus being a sculptor who works in like clay and silicone and these kinds of things is that when other people do the design, the light is not really part of that equation. I mean, you are thinking about like, okay, if I'm sculpting this here, how is the light going to work with this? Is this going to read well? What's the silhouette look like? All that kind of stuff. But the sun is the sun. Like your light source is your light source. Like your light source exists. But when you're working in a medium that is completely flat and has no actual like depth to it, it's kind of hard to know like what light sources people are going to be in and how best to make things look like they actually are sitting on top of each other. Because obviously when you do this, this, I kind of do it as though my perspective is like dead on, as opposed to being off from any particular side, because that way, kind of any which way that you look at it, for the most part, it works. But so that's something I have to think of. So I'm also creating a light source, like lights and shadows and the sort of highs and lows and the contrast and that kind of thing. That isn't something that I feel like a sculptor would have to think of in the same kind of a way, which was a real challenge on this tail because I really wanted there to be depth. So when you see it from a distance, you're like, oh yeah, like you could stick a finger, like you could feel that ridge, that kind of thing, just like you can when you're looking at the actual fruit itself, because I really didn't want this tail to feel flat. So something that I also had a lot of fun with when it came to this tail was creating a new brush for the scattered seeds. And I have them on a couple of different layers so that I could play with the opacity of them. But the seeds themselves are also made up of a bunch of different layers, which is hysterical and probably overkill because really, like, I worked on them and on my screen they were probably this big, and on the actual tail they're like that big. So it's not, you know, like, was it necessary? Yes, it was, okay? I feel the texture when I look at them. You can kind of see the texture when you look at them, and I feel like it gave it just that little extra, that extra something. I go the extra mile. I can't stop myself. I can't help it. But I am very pleased with how that brush turned out, and each seed has like a shadow and its highlight and some texture on it as well, just like the actual seeds, because I found some really good macro images. I tried to get as close as possible. Originally, we thought about doing the seeds actually on the underbelly of the tail, but I thought that maybe that was a bit busy and I kind of wanted to isolate the seeds to just the fins. I felt like it gave it a different look that I liked a little bit better. So this tail also features 4 large, very large seam fins and 1 sort of long-ish dorsal fin. And each of the fins has 1 piece of boning that runs along what would be kind of the actual bone of the fin, I suppose. And then the dorsal fin has 2 pieces of boning to give it a little extra oomph. And of course, this tail was made for specific use with the fish fin. It does feature my usual zipper down the side for easy monofin access. So because everybody wants to know,
what is the fabric? What's the fabric?
Now, first of all, as has been mentioned in the first chunk of this video, this isn't fabric that you just go and buy with this print on it. Like, I painted this, I drew that, that's my drawing, it's my art. Now that we've got that out of the way, it's a 4-way stretch white spandex polyester blend. It has a little bit of texture to it. It's fairly lightweight in the water and dries very quickly. My design is printed onto the fabric via a process known as sublimation printing, which is not something that I do in-house. I actually outsource that to another Canadian company because the printers themselves are quite large and require an entire like know-how slash skill set slash I haven't got the time of day. Please let somebody who knows what they're doing actually do this because it's too many mistakes can happen. It's too much chaos. My printer actually also supplies my fabric, so it's all made within Canada. And I know you guys really want to know where I get, it is a sort of a professional sort of a thing that a courtesy, as I'm not the only one that uses this printer, that I don't just up and share that information all over the internet. Your best bet if you are looking to find a sublimation printer, and they are becoming more popular, which is wonderful, is to actually look up sublimation printing on fabric. Also maybe include the area in which you live in a Google search. It is a little bit of legwork on your end, and I know it would be so nice if I could just share that information, but please understand why I don't. It's also my livelihood. It's also my business. It's also just part of the great circle of life. So as of recording this, I have not yet put the Odicoat coating on the tail, but I will be adding the Odicoat to specific areas on the fluke and a little bit along the heels. Now, this is something that I offer as an add-on if people want it. I have done a video talking about Odicoat and what it is, and essentially it creates sort of a barrier on the tail. There are pros and cons to using Odicoat, just so that we're all on the same page, but one thin layer does a world of good in terms of when you're scuffing and scraping along, you're not going to do as much damage. It's not foolproof, okay? It's not foolproof, but it is something that can just add a little bit of time to the lifespan of your mermaid tail. So if you're interested in learning more about Odicoat and what the deal is with that, I'll leave that video in the description box, or I'll link it in the cards somewhere for you guys to check out as well. And again, if you're interested in learning about any of what it is that I've talked about today, or how to make your own tails, designing tails, or maybe you're looking for scale sheets or a color guide, there's a bunch of resources I have up in my Patreon pod shop, and it really does help support me and what I do when you make those purchases. I'm always very appreciative when I see a sale. All of the details that are in there include photos and text, so there's a little bit of everything, and I have tried really hard to make them as as possible. So if you're interested in purchasing one of my ebooks, I'll be sure to leave a link in the description box down below. I know it's changed a few times. It's no longer on Gumroad. It's no longer on shopvancouvermermaid.com. Like we've settled on Patreon. We are happy over on Patreon. Patreon is doing the good things, which also brings me to Patreon. If you'd like to join my extended pod community, you can do so over there while you're there. Check it out. And otherwise, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join the pod and the bell notification as well so you never miss an upload. I love you all, my fishes, and I look forward to catching you all again in my next video. Happy swimming. Bye.